I'm usually called stupid for choosing to live the off-grid life. Whatever it is that modern society is doing, living in a big house, running electric heat, running gas heat, running propane, since that is the norm, that must be the smarter way of doing things. Well, I've done it both ways, and I can tell you that's just a bunch of, well, never mind. There may be some disadvantages to living in a tiny house of 200 square feet. Now, what does that mean, 200 square feet? This is just slightly bigger than a bedroom. When I was a kid, my grandparents had a bedroom. It was huge. So this house would be smaller than that bedroom, but 200 square feet, slightly bigger than a regular sized bedroom. Carolyn does cook in the camper now. She used to cook on the porch. So there is some disadvantages. You have to learn how to predict what your spouse is going to do so you don't get in her way or she doesn't get in your way. But as far as being stupid, I just don't see it. So today we're in front of the wood stove again. I'm called an idiot or stupid more times than any other subject when it comes to the wood stove. Everybody is an expert on the wood stove, and literally no one is an expert on the wood stove because no one is doing it right. When they come in and say you're an idiot, and of course I've said this before, they call me an idiot like I don't know anything. You're an idiot, okay? That's great. Now, when I say this, I'm only talking about the people who write the words idiot. You know, you are an idiot. You're an idiot. That's what they say. You're an idiot. Well, they never spell it right. They always spell your, Y-O-U-R. Well, it's spelled Y-O-U''R-E. And then they come up to the next word, N, A-N. And they always spell it with an A. There's always a variety of ways they spell idiot. So they had 3 words to spell, and they got all 3 words wrong, and I'm the idiot. Well, congratulations. I guess in order to be smart, you can't spell. This is a modern piece of technology, modern day technology. And there was a massive amount of engineering that went into it. And I say this nonsense. Every time I make a video about wood stoves, I talk about the engineering. It's got baffles up here, catalytic converters, air tubes, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. And those air tubes bring air in. The smoke hits those air tubes. It ignites the smoke. So you're getting a dual burn out of this. You're getting a burn down at the bottom that heats up the air tubes. And then you get a burn at the top that actually is hotter than the burn at the bottom. The burn at the bottom is roughly 500 degrees. What you're seeing there is about 500 degrees. The burn at the top, when the smoke hits it, is about 1500 degrees. I am really impressed with this new technology. Now, I was raised with the old grandma, grandpa, mom and dad wood stoves. I get what they are. You pump them full of wet wood and you let it burn all night. Well, there's your first mistake. You're filling it up with wet wood. This is walnut, actually. Look how pretty that is. This was from an old tree that had died. I know you're not supposed to burn walnut, but I'm not ever going to make anything out of it, and I'm not going to put it on a trailer and take it anywhere, so I'm going to burn it. This is 20% moisture content or less. Now, you can buy a moisture meter and you put it in there. I've had people tell me, well, it's only common sense. I've been doing this for years. Everybody knows that. No, it's not common sense. If it was common sense, then everybody would be doing it correctly. It's not common sense. People just can't seem to grasp. You got to have this below 20%. Now, you might hear that hollow sound. That's an indication that it's dry, but it's not a complete indication. The second indication is it's fairly light. And then the third indication is you actually point that moisture meter at. Well, when you do that, you got to split it first. So you split it and then immediately test it. If you wait a few hours, it'll dry and the test will be invalid. Now, there is another method, and I'm not sure. I mean, you really got to be sensitive to this, but you can smell it. If there's an odor coming from it, usually it smells good, like walnut or oak or whatever. If you can smell it, then it's probably too wet. As you probably can see in here, or even with this is not a very big piece. So I have 4 pieces of this size in this wood stove. Now, if you kind of put all that together, that's 1 log. So throughout the day, if you continuously do this, it's 3 logs a day that I use. I light this up in the morning, around noontime, and then again right before bed. 3 logs. Now, there is an advantage to living in a 200 square foot house that this stove is so efficient that it has fire brick in there. That's what a lot of people will call it, but it's not fire brick. It's actually a engineered piece of insulation, like from the space shuttle or something. I mean, it's incredible. That holds the heat for hours. So the flames only last maybe a couple hours, but the heat from the wood stove lasts about 8 hours. Now this is for an average Missouri wintertime, somewhere in between the 20, well, let's just call it 20s, 20-degree temperature. But when we get down to the negative temperatures, man, we really use some firewood then. Oh my goodness. Yeah, we use 4 logs. So when you add all this up, I use about 1 cord of firewood per year. Now a cord of wood, easy way to look at it, may not be completely accurate. I mean, it's actually, you can actually multiply this, but a lot of people look at it 4 feet wide, 4 foot tall. This is a stack of wood, 4 feet wide, 4 foot tall, 8 feet long. Now if you multiply 4 times 4 times 8, that gives you the square footage of it. But everybody understands that also can calculate into roughly 3 truckloads. Or another way to look at it, it can translate roughly into 3 trees at about 14 inches diameter. Now, I know somebody's gonna say, oh, that's not true. One tree may have more branches than another. I said roughly, on average, it's about 3 trees. I actually calculated how many trees we have. I counted them all up on our property, figured out how long that was gonna last. It was gonna last us 30 years if we didn't ever have any regrowth. So I'm gonna shut the door. Now I got everything going really well. The chimney's nice and hot, so bringing all that air in there. Now you're gonna, well, you won't be able to see it. You can't see it, and that's what's so disappointing. You can't see it on the camera, but you'll start seeing blue flames floating up there, especially if I push the knob in. It'll slow way down, and you'll see blue flames shooting out of those air tubes. Oh, it's just fantastic. So that's the 1500 degrees. But this isn't going to work if you put wet firewood in it, because wet firewood reduces your efficiency down to 30%. So my efficiency is 85%. And this is an older wood stove. You can buy them now about 90 to 95% efficiency. They got to go up in efficiency every year, EPA regulations. When you're burning wet firewood, you're spending all that energy to burn water. Now that's just a terrible idea. I've said this 1,000 times in these videos, but apparently nobody's listening. When you burn water, that means that smoke, because the tubes up there are not burning it because it's wet. It cools it off. So you take that water and you mix it up with the smoke, and it sticks to the side of your chimney. Well, we know that the smoke is flammable because when it hits that, the air tubes, it burns off to 1500 degrees. So now it's sticking in your chimney. So as soon as the spark goes up there, it's about 500 degree spark, and it hits the chimney, your chimney catches on fire at 1500 degrees, and you have a possibility of an attic fire. It's very dangerous. But I'm the stupid one. One of the things I've noticed is this walnut likes to be close together to burn well. The logs do. I don't know why. So I got to shove them a little bit closer. Oak doesn't seem to do that as much. Don't know why. See, the flames kind of picked up already. So I'm not a big fan of cutting a lot of firewood. As a matter of fact, we have 15 years of firewood out there. Well, that was when we started. I've used, well, this is our 4th year. Can you believe that? When we first moved here, I built an outdoor heat exchanger that we hooked up to the camper. And we used 8 cords of wood in 3 or 4 months. We started that up in October. We moved up here in January, and we were out of that firewood. So 8 times 3 is 24 truckloads of firewood. 24 truckloads. I will never burn that much firewood again. I will figure out a way to burn less firewood. The 15 cords that we have, I think took us maybe 2 summers to accumulate. And we got it all free. And we're going to start getting some more, I guess, this summer. And we're going to get about 3 truckloads every year, maybe 4. Try to stay ahead of just a little bit of what we're using each year. But we're not going to be a big stress about it this time. A lot of it was a lot of work to get to huge hills and different things. If we see that we're going to have to work too hard at it, we won't do it. Now, we did have a manual log splitter, and I used to use a maul to split it all. I think we're going to buy an electric log splitter. We'll be able to run it off our solar panels. The electric log splitter is like, I don't know, somewhere, if I recall, somewhere between $300 and $500 at Harbor Freight. I did a lot of YouTube research on it, and we'll just get 3 truckloads. I mean, think about that. Anybody can do 3 truckloads of anything. It's not a lot of work. I remember when we moved here, and I said that we were going to move on an 1.5 acres and we were going to burn firewood. Oh my goodness, you can't do that. I mean, everybody was telling me that I was insane, that I was going to move on an 1.5 acres and burn firewood. You'll be out of firewood first year. What are you talking about? That's crazy. And I kept arguing, no, that's not true. It's just not true. I'm going to have a small house, about the size of a bedroom, with an efficient wood stove. No, you're wrong. You just can't do it. Well, here I am doing it. Here's the thing I always try to make kind of an analogy. 30 or 40 years ago, there wasn't internet. Let's back up. There may have been internet. Somebody's going to, oh, yes, there was. They had it in the Navy or the Army or whatever. Let's back up. There wasn't YouTube back then. So here today, you're on your little supercomputer that holds in your hand. I mean, look at that. That computer would have taken up a size of a room this big 30 or 40 years ago, and you wouldn't have owned one. But now you have one. Well, I'm telling you, if you honestly believe the way you run the wood stove today is the same way you ran the wood stove 30 years ago, you need to throw this away, because you don't understand that technology constantly improves. But I watch guys running up and down the road all day long, getting firewood. And I keep thinking, why? Why are you getting that much firewood? You are doing something wrong. It doesn't take that much. Well, the first thing they're doing is they're getting firewood the year they need it. Nope, you get firewood 3 years ago, you let it sit and dry, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to start getting it now, so it's got plenty of time to dry. But no, everybody's wanting to get it right now and burn it right now, and then tell me I'm the idiot because they're burning wet firewood. The way I kind of look at it is at 30% efficiency. Let's say I burn 1 cord of firewood when it's dry. I'm going to end up burning, let's call it 3 cords of firewood when it's wet. But I'm the stupid one. No. You put it in there wet because you want to have coals in the morning so you can start your firewood back up. Well, no. What I do is I put a little bit of kindling in there, 3 or 4 sticks like that. Underneath there, I take the torch real quick, and I've showed this on video, so I'm not really exaggerating. And within 3 minutes, you got a roaring fire. I was out there next to the wood pile the other day, and I said I only burn 1/4 of firewood. It's always interesting. In the summertime, when we're talking about air conditioning, because Carolyn and I don't use air conditioning, well, you can't do that in Florida. It's too hot in Florida. You got to have air conditioning. Well, I've been to Florida. I know what Florida's like. I've stayed there. Dad lives down there. I know what Florida's all about. Missouri has comparable temperatures. Maybe we're not quite as hot for quite as long, but we have comparable temperatures to Florida. Well, then, in the wintertime, all the people from Canada like to brag, oh, you don't know what it's like to live in Canada. You'll never get away with that in Canada. I've been to Canada in the wintertime. I really have. Went up there for a business trip. And yeah, it's pretty cold. I mean, when all those truckers were doing their little protests and that cold, I felt for them. I knew what they were going through. So yeah, I get it. So when you come down to Missouri and it gets down to -4, -6 degrees, I kind of have the sense of what it's like up there in Canada. I understand there are times you guys can get down to -27. I've been to Minnesota when it was -27. So I understand that you have those cold snaps. When we're at -4, like I said, we use 4 logs here, and the rest of the time we use 3 logs per day. I would suspect that if I was in Canada with this, we'd go to 4 logs per day, and on the really cold days, we'd go to 5 logs. I also could put more insulation up in the ceiling, which we have talked about doing. But I got a comment the other day. I don't know where you live, but you must be a really warm area because I live in Canada and I use 10 cords of firewood a year. I mean, it's a simple Google search. If you're using 10 cords a year, that is 30 trees. That is 30 pickup truckloads of firewood. If you're doing that much, it's not worth it. Go to gas heat. First of all, insulate your house. So I Googled it. On average, a 1,000 square foot home goes through about 3 cords. So 3 times 3, that's 3 truckloads times 3 cords would be 9 truckloads. So that's a far cry from 30 of wood during a typical winter. Using that as a baseline, let's assume that you had a huge house of 15 rooms, is something like 4,000 square feet. By that measure, you'd need 12 cords. So this guy says, I got a little cabin and I use 10 cords of wood. Well, then you're doing it wrong. No, you need to rethink what you're doing, and that's what I told him. I'm not going to feel bad for you because I'm smarter than you. If you're burning 10 cords of wood, I mean, you're spending all summer cutting. You may be spending all winter cutting wood. That is an enormous amount of work. Why would you go through that effort? That's insane. Don't do it. So if you will click the up next box to take you to a video where I was talking about a winter wonderland. So if I can inspire you to think smart so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.